A new report out of WDW Pro says that Snow White's last set of reshoots, which might have brought it up to $400 million, might have actually done the trick to make this one a hit. Who says so? Well, Disney's licensing partners are very happy with whatever the finished product is. Let's talk about that rumor here on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas Jake Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and here with me is the fairest of them all, Mr. VashSky. Vash, how's the mirror treating you these days?
Well, it was fine up until it said, maybe I'm not the fairest of them all. Jonas, I think it actually pointed to you.
Well,
Rats.
That's not, I'd say your mirror must be cracked. All right, let's talk here about this article out of That Park Place, the place that you should be going to, you should be bookmarking. And, well, here we are. Disney allegedly makes massive changes to Snow White during 2 years of reshoots in the wake of Rachel Zegler's PR disaster. Oh, man, you just can't get better than a quote-unquote PR disaster here. This by WDW Pro. Most movies go through film production in months, not years. Disney's Snow White live-action remake is not one of the most movies. Instead, Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot's retelling of the German fairy tale has become a 2-year production fiasco. But Bob Iger and Disney feel it is the House of Mouse which might have the final laugh. Look at that right there. That's Snow White. By the way, if you've ever seen the sketches, I actually see the artistry more in the sketches than the ink and paint there. To go through the entire story of how this film turned into a nightmare for Disney would be a very long read, which we're not going to do today. Like Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, there have been plenty of incompetence, much bad luck, damaging leaks, and sassy stars who fail to understand the art of promotion. Still, even Indy 5 is dwarfed by just how long actors have been in front of the cameras for Snow White. This film has been in production since 2022. World of Real confirmed principal photography on Snow White began on March 7th of 2022 and wrapped. It was supposed to be done in June of 2022. Okay, last time I checked, let's see. That is more than 2 years ago that this film should have been in the can, as they say, wrapped, as they say. Vash, why didn't we see this in 2023?
Well, apparently it wasn't good enough to print, I suppose. When reviewing the dailies or the footage that they had or the rough edit, I think it was agreed that this is going to need some work also, too. You know, isn't around the time, I want to say last year, that we were starting to hear some of the Rachel Zegler stuff, and that was kind of placed into the media.
Yeah, so, that we did. She said some things, and what's funny is some of those interviews could be taken out of context, but we're going to specifically talk about a little bit of that here in just a moment. Here's a photo from Gal Gadot, who is I'm going to go out on a limb here and say she's a pretty good-looking lady. But here's her chair. She says, "Feels so good to be back." She could have said, "Feels so good to be bad." That would be right on the nose there. It's the evil queen chair. And then Rachel Zegler. That's a wrap on Snow White. And I so freaking proud and emotional. I love these people so much. And there's the people she loved right there at that T. She loved them so freaking much. Now, however, a trusted source has reached out to That Park Place with new information which we are now allowed to print so long as we protect their identity. It should be noted that we have used this source before to great success and that we implore readers to still recognize this is definitively rumor. Now, I just want to make sure that everyone understands this. Guys, are you looking at me? Are you listening to my voice? This is rumor and speculation, so take it all with a grain of salt. This is about events that we were not first party to, and this is about things that might not yet come to pass, as Galadriel might say. All right, let's return to the article here. According to our source, Snow White has gone through 3 sets of reshoots as a result of backlash, a terrible original script, poor reception by focus groups, and grave concern by a number of Disney executives and licensing partners over just how badly this film might perform. Vash, can you explain what a licensing partner is?
I believe the licensing partners are the ones who facilitate merchandise and consumer products on behalf of the Walt Disney Company by using the license for that original work in order to produce those materials, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's the way I would describe it as well. So like if Pampers does Mickey Mouse themed diapers, then they would be a licensing partner. If Hasbro makes Star Wars toys, they would be a licensing partner.
Gotcha.
if a company like Mattel makes Barbie dolls of Snow White, they would be a licensing partner. All right. According to the source, these reshoots have attempted the following. Number one, clean up the original vision to exclude dwarfs from the final product, except for one live actor. Reshoots allegedly occurred at this point to allow for new CGI dwarfs to be inserted into a large amount of the movie. We are informed this was not inexpensive and may have added an additional 30 million or more to the costs. We now have the infamous photo, which everyone said was AI, of all the dwarfs standing around Snow White. It's difficult because they are dwarfs and not dwarves. In Tolkien, they're dwarves with a V, and at Disney, they're dwarfs with an F. Number two, another set of reshoots was then ordered as a result of extremely poor reception by focus groups who detested the character of Snow White as portrayed in the movie. Again, this is rumor, but we're told efforts were made to bring in the younger version of Snow White, played by a different actress, to try to more soften the character. This may have even included a new musical number added to give her even more screen time, her being the younger version of Snow White here. Now, one thing I want to say, obviously, Pro covered that extensively over on That Park Place, the website. And of course, I'm not sure if we covered it on this channel, definitely over on the WDW Pro channel. There's more evidence out there to support that particular rumor. Vash, you got anything so far before we move on to point three?
Well, yeah. So the fan backlash reception. This is kind of why I brought up the Rachel Zegler thing from before, because there was some talk out there. Now, I'm not saying that we necessarily agree with this opinion or whatever, but there was some talk out there to suggest that maybe Rachel Zegler being made prominent in the media at that time was deliberate in order to get maybe some executive approvals in order to go back and fix this film. Maybe take it back to its more classical fantasy roots in the 1937 version.
That's a fascinating idea there. At the time, the highest level producer on Disney live action remakes would have been Sean Bailey, and above that would have been Alan Bergman and Dana Walden, presumably Alan Bergman, and of course, depending on the timeline here, Chapek or Iger. I think, and of course, Sean Bailey has now left the company. He's still working on, I believe, he has a credit on Tron Ares, which is coming up soon here. So I do wonder who the executive or producer would have been to do that. Now, one thing is for sure, Rachel Zegler went out on that red carpet. Gal Gadot went out on the red carpet, and they both said similar talking points. Rachel Zegler got a lot more awkward with it, obviously saying, well, it's not 1937 anymore. And thank you that she actually did remember the year. Not all of the Disney company does remember that year. And they talk about how she's not going to be rescued by a prince anymore. It's not about her, kind of implying that the romance aspect was silly, or that the fact that it came out in 1937 means it's outdated, outmoded. And who would want to watch that? Of course, they said this on the D23 red carpet, where you are most likely to find people who absolutely adore the 1937 Snow White.
Exactly. And you know, the reason why that kind of theory was brought up was because those interviews were conducted in 2022. In 2023 is when a lot of that stuff became saturated on YouTube and social media, right? That was the kind of the interesting point. Those interviews were out there for a while and they got picked up randomly. That's the interesting caveat there.
Yeah, and there's always someone willing to go after all of this stuff to try to stir up the hate, and that happens. Sometimes that happens inorganically, and sometimes that happens because someone brought this to their attention and they're bombarded with it until they finally realize what's going on and they just have to talk about it. Now, let's go to point three here, which is the reason for this video. Finally, a third set of reshoots just wrapped, and according to our source, these are the result of a movie that was still seen as incoherent and disjointed. The attempt was made to more closely align the film to the original animated feature-length film, while still allowing the Zegler version to have a pro-feminist message, albeit one that is softer and less militant. Man, what a word right there. Militant. That worries me for whatever the original version was. I think the idea here is that they're stepping into the idea that she was the princess, the absolute feminineness, and believing in romance and believing in all of the good in the world here. Snow White is supposed to be an aspirational figure here. And hearing that she has to be militant, I worry about that one.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Because I think when we think of Disney princess, we think of like royalty. We don't necessarily think, I don't know, feminine world leader. like you know what I'm saying? It's always been a kind of a softer approach to these characters utilizing that title. And I think they really wanted to drive it in a different direction. I think Rachel Zegler said that herself. Oh, well, I'm a leader who doesn't need a man necessarily. And you know, it's all about finding my inner power and having it passed down from my father and wanting to continue that legacy and lead the country kind of thing. And it was like, okay,
right.
We're pretty far from the animated version there.
You notice with masculine stories, they never have to say he doesn't need no wife. There's a tweet that went out that I've never watched The Sopranos. It just wasn't my style. But the quote was great. It's if you have to keep telling everybody you're the boss, it means you're not the boss. When you have to say that she don't need no man, it kind of begs the question of, okay, why do you have to say that? Anyways, let's go back to the article to wrap up the reason why this is happening. Our source informs us that one of the driving factors for the third set of reshoots was to reassure Mattel. By the way, Mattel likes to make girls' dolls. That's not the only thing they make, but they are the makers of Barbie. That this would not be a damaging enterprise for the toy maker in supporting Snow White. Reshoots largely occurred before the box office results of Inside Out 2, so Disney was not in a good place for leverage or for providing confidence to partners in their box office post-pandemic abilities. Inside Out 2 may have calmed nerves, but focus groups, having seen this latest version of Snow White, also have given top executives at Disney reason to hope they've turned a corner here. They may also be hoping for that Barbie money, as it were, here. So something that is, again, not a fan of Barbie. It was at least a well-constructed film with excellent production values and great production design. But it was very much a feminine movie. And I wonder if one of the reasons they got the reshoots is to try to go more in that Barbie direction, which I know some people are insulted by that idea that Snow White would be in the same breath as Barbie, but I can see executives saying, oh, we want some of that money. Because Inside Out 2, having a similar audience breakdown as Barbie, not as much kids, but more women that are not little kids. Saying older women sounds different than I mean it. I wonder if they're going to try Snow White in that specific direction. Vash, do you have anything to say before we wrap this up?
Well, I think people saw that number on screen right there, a projected $400 million for this film. Again, this is according to this rumor right here. That would mean that it needs Barbie money in order to even break even or very close to it. I think this is definitely going to be a loss leader. I think for the studio, that is for sure, and that's very, very unfortunate. Also, too, I think with the trailers that come out, if they want to turn perception around, because I think perception is going to keep people from actually entering into the theater and giving this film a chance. If they really want to turn this around, those trailers that initially are revealed for this thing have to really knock it out of the park. In that, I mean, they really have to evoke that 1937 quality feel vintage. Because I don't, if they don't do that, if they are like, hey, we want to tell a modern retelling of the story, that's going to fall super flat very fast.
Yep, agreed. All right, we want to throw this to our commenters. Do you think that there's a possibility that Disney made this into a good film on its third or fourth try? We used to say that Disney makes about a third as many films as all of the other studios, but now we're realizing that they actually do make as many. They only release 1/3 of them to theaters. Let us know your thoughts on everything in the comment section down below. Like this video. If you like this video, consider hitting that notification bell. And of course, subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.